All right, let's just get this out of the way. Stevie Nicks is not a witch. I repeat, Stevie Nicks is not a witch. And Michael Douglas, welcome to another edition of Dr. Pundit, where we talk about all things music and not medicine. And on this edition, it's another musical musings. And, this kind of caught my sense of revisiting this issue online. Now, I know Stevie Nicks is not a witch, but she has this witchy persona. And this kind of came to me. I mean, this has always been a part of lore regarding Stevie Nicks and the image she portrays in Fleetwood Mac. But they, of course, just released their bundle of albums, the Fleetwood Mac collection, a 6-disc set that basically chronicles all of their albums from Fleetwood Mac 1975 to 1987. So covering the albums Fleetwood Mac, Rumors, Tusk, Mirage, Tango in the Night. And one could argue that this phase was definitely the most popular phase of the band, with Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham joining the group only in 1975, not being part of Peter Green's outfit in the late 60s and early 70s. All that is, that's kind of by the wayside. I wanted to talk about this Stevie Nicks Wiccan witch thing, of course. And like I said, I'm having a blast listening to this kind of whole complete collection that's also available on streaming services as well. So what jump-started this Stevie Nicks is a witch Wiccan thing? I think it's fair to say that she definitely employs that persona, and she knows this. It sells records. It sells concert tickets. Of course, you'd be stupid not to, I won't say exploit it, but to use it to continue to embrace and engage curious fans and keep them coming back and listening to one of the principal performers in the group, the most enduring performers in the group. And Stevie Nicks was definitely one of those performers, as she had a very prolific solo career in parallel as well. So what was the time period in which this really started to foment? Because it sure wasn't going on when she was with Buckingham, Lindsey Buckingham, Buckingham Nicks, the one-off collaboration the two had prior to starting Fleetwood Mac. But what was the song that transformed Stevie Nicks into this whole Wiccan persona? From her eccentric metaphysical songwriting to her flowing layers of black lace and chiffon, Stevie Nicks has always carried the persona of a magical tambourine-wielding witch. Her Fleetwood Mac and solo pursuits also both leaned into this imagery, of course, and she brought to the table upon arrival to Fleetwood Mac in 1975 for their first self-titled album in that new era. Now, let's jumpstart to 1977 and their Rumors album, one of the most successful albums of the second half of the 20th century. And one of the most iconic tracks from the 1977 album Rumors was, I think, the most transformative for her persona. And this was a track produced by co-producer of the album, Ken Calais. And he basically said this song allowed Stevie Nicks to kind of become this witch she was always thinking or writing about, but never becoming. Okay. And that song is Gold Dust Woman. Now, Stevie Nicks has never confessed to being a witch, but she has been long obsessed with witchy lore. The album Rumors was only the second to feature, of course, the newest members, Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, and their stylistic contributions to the group really blended with the original members, Mick Fleetwood, Christine McVie, while still representing their individual aesthetics and attitudes. Buckingham's Never Going Back Again and Go Your Own Way, huge top 20 hit, reflect his folk rock roots. Now, Stevie Nicks' Dreams and Gold Dust Woman had an ethereality component that seemed to mimic her flowy attire and movements. But as a band would come to find while recording the track Gold Dust Woman, this atmosphere came with a darker side. Now, in a 2012 interview with Music Radar, the producer, the co-producer of the album, Ken Calais, said, "The song grew more evil as we built it. Stevie had a lot of Courvoisier in her as she did this incredible coyote-like howling at the end of the song. She had become this witch she was always writing about. And to accentuate her vocals, Mick Fleetwood went into this room we had mic'd up and she broke sheets of glass." Now, when you listen to this track, you have to really kind of think strained to hear that. You can certainly hear the coyote-like whoops at the end of the song, but apparently the breaking glass did add to the song's overall mood, which Calais said was their primary focus. He went on to say, "I called over to SIR and they sent over a bunch of weird instruments, like an electric harpsichord with a jet phaser that created a cool whooshing sound. We weren't looking for musicality, we were looking for accents." Well, it was one of these accents that Stevie Nicks really pushed for, apparently. If Lindsey Buckingham was a master of folk rock jams and Christine McVie was an expert pop hitmaker, then Stevie Nicks provided the British-American rock band with a folksy, albeit verbose, easy-listening kind of hook. Stevie Nicks often had to fight for the band to see her true creative vision, as her original drafts were not always the most sensible. But this is where the power of Fleetwood Mac, I think, musical collaborations really came into play. And that's why they were such a great group in that heyday in the mid to late 70s. Lindsey Buckingham was the one who found an arrangement of Dreams that the rest of the band didn't find boring. Okay, and producer Ken Calais helped edit Gold Dust Woman down to a radio hit, much to the chagrin of Stevie Nicks. He later recalled to the magazine Music Radar, "It was a weird song. Truthfully, I wasn't very excited about it. I couldn't tell where it was going. It was typical Stevie. Most of her songs in their inception are close to 10 to 12 minutes long with endless verses and epic stories. My job became one of editing, taking all of these sections and making them flow, cutting out the fat. Stevie would go crazy. Oh, that verse was about my mother. That part was about my dog. These things would mean something to her, but they had to work for the listener." Well, they did. The song wasn't a huge pop hit, but did make an indention on the Rock Tracks chart, hitting number 31. But all of that doesn't matter. This is a song that I guess the co-producer of the album and Stevie Nicks herself and even Mick Fleetwood said really kind of transformed Stevie Nicks into the Wiccan-like persona we all know and love today, even though she doesn't admit to being a witch. I'm Michael Douglas, and before we end out the show, why don't we take a listen to that last part of the song, her kind of sounding like a wolf or whatever it is that added to this persona before heading out of the show. Okay, there you have it. Gold Dust Woman, the end of the song there. Stevie Nicks, I guess, transforming herself into the witch or Wiccan everybody wanted her to be. I'm Michael Douglas. If you like what you see here on Dr. Pundit, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe. And as the late great Barry White always used to say, let the music play. And I'll see you on the next episode.